Are we going? Oh, it says recording. We're going.
Oh.
I hope this is how every episode starts, with us just being confused about whether or
With
not
us
we're
clicking
recording.
the record button multiple times until the browser catches up with all the clicks.
Are we recording? Are we recording? Are we recording? I think we're recording. All right. Hello, myth heads. Welcome back to another episode of Mythic Reality.
I forgot about myth heads.
Not in the middle of the
No,
intro,
I'm glad
dude.
you remembered.
Welcome back to another episode of Mythic Reality, the show where we talk about mythology and what those mythological things may have actually been in real life. This week, we're going to be talking about Ammit the Devourer, a creature from Egyptian mythology. But before we get into that, I'm your host, Todd Petrella. I'm a longtime lover of mythology. That's all I got to say about myself. That's all you really need to know about myself. Mitch, how about you? Who are you?
I'm Mitch. I like to press keys on a computer, and I'm looking at this picture of Ammit the Devourer, and this is a crazy looking dude.
So you don't know who Ammit the Devourer is. Have you ever heard of Ammit the Devourer prior to this?
I have not. I would definitely say that out of the two of us, if I were to pick one of the two of us to be like the person that you call when you get like a question about Egypt on like a trivia show, it would be one of the two of us, and it wouldn't be me. I'll tell you that.
Dude, I love Egyptian mythology, as you know, by my failed Egyptian D&D campaign. Not really failed, but we just never continued after the second session. Making this podcast more successul than that campaign.
Yeah, that's true. This podcast is going on for more sessions than that campaign.
But before we actually do jump into Ammit the Devourer of Ammit the Devourer, it's a hard word to say. It's like brewery. Let's do some housekeeping and touch back on our previous two episodes. Some new tidbits of information or other points that our viewers have shared with us. We have viewers after 3 episodes.
Woo!
So first things first, I'm going to try to tone down the swearing. I'm an honest person, and therefore I swear a lot, but made my grandmother very upset. So I'm going to tone down the swearing. I'm going to try to tone down the swearing. Gam, I'm sorry if a fuck word or a shit word slips out here and there. I did that on purpose. I'm sorry. I'll try to keep it down.
You're a good grandson, Todd.
I try. But while that was one of her comments about the first episode we put out, she did also say that herons, because her favorite animal is the great blue heron, she did say that when herons fly, if you see their shadow, it looks just like a dragon, except they don't breathe fire.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they have like the long legs, and they like kind of put them out like straight behind them when they're flying.
Mm-hmm. If you think about their wings too. But if you think about how we were talking about how them being like some like dragons descended from dinosaurs, we could say that like pterosaurs could have possibly evolved into what is now heron and those other shorebirds. I don't know the technical name for them, but aside from shorebirds. But I could see that if like a pterodactyl over time eventually became a heron.
Yeah, and we had mentioned before about how on the dragon episode that glasses didn't exist in a lot of the time periods that these stories came from. So not being able to see some creature that's far away, you wouldn't really have any frame of reference for how big it is.
That's very
I think
true.
the one that I mentioned was an albatross, a real big seabird.
Mm-hmm.
But a heron is also a fairly large coastal bird. And that would be another like thing that you could see in the sky without having seen one like up close before. So you don't have any frame of reference for how big it is, and not really knowing how big it is and seeing the shape of it and getting scared if you've never seen one of those before.
Yeah, you wouldn't even have to necessarily just have seen the shadow. Like it could have, like you could just see a silhouette of it flying through the sky.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Oh shit!" Take the kids, get inside. Oh crap! Crap!
If I recall correctly, isn't that how the ants won in Bug's Life? They made like a really big like bird shadow to scare the grasshoppers.
The grasshoppers, the locusts. Yeah.
I've
like haven't seen Bug's Life in years.
Mythology, it seems.
Yeah, memory. All right. So that's the little tidbit about the dragons and the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs, I have to say. Loch Ness Monster, it's still under lock and key. We don't know what that is. Maybe it's a bunch of otters. Maybe it's a eel. Who knows? Maybe it's just a children's toy floating in the water. But now that that's out of the way,
up on shore sometimes. Didn't they really big rubber duck like wash up on shore somewhere one time?
Probably.
I don't remember where that was, but I know like a huge rubber duck with that like no origin washed up on like a beach or something at one point.
I vaguely remember hearing about that. I don't remember if it was in regards to the Loch Ness Monster, but I
do. No, I'm not saying that was the Loch Ness Monster. But I'm saying that it's totally plausible that somebody like had a prop and like maybe they were making like a home movie or something, and like the tide took it out, and they're like, no, shit, and they're like, oh boy, gonna hear about this on the news.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we got that out of the way, what is? Well, it should say who is, but really, what is Ammit the Devourer?
Talk about this crazy chimera.
So here's a picture of Ammit the Devourer. Bing. So as you can see, Ammit the Devourer is a chimera consisting of the head of a crocodile, the front legs and chest of a lion, and the hindquarters and hind legs of a hippopotamus. 3 animals very important to the Egyptian ecosystem and that were prominent in the Egyptian pantheon and just the surrounding environment. But in myth, Ammit the Devourer is present during the final trial of Egypt's afterlife process. I'm blanking on what the actual name of it is now, but for lack of a better term or lack of the correct term, I'm going to call it the weighing of the heart. And essentially what happens here is when a soul makes it to the Hall of Judgment, I believe is what it's called, makes it to the Hall of Judgment, the god Anubis, the jackal-headed god, weighs your heart on a scale against the feather of Mayat. Mayat is the goddess of order. And if your heart is lighter than the feather, you get to go into the afterlife or enter the field of reeds, which is just the afterlife. But if your heart is heavier than the feather, Ammit the Devourer will eat you, and you cease to exist. You disappear forever, and you're gone.
Now, does this happen like in the afterlife, or is this some sort of like funeral kind of ceremony?
This happens in the Duat, which is their spirit world.
Okay.
And I think I could be wrong about how many trials there are. I think there's 12 different trials that align with the 12 hours of the night. We do have an afterlife episode planned.
To get into like the heaven of the Egyptian folklore, do you have to pass all 12 of those trials?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah. They don't mess around.
Be a real good dude. 12 trials.
That's why their funerary practices are so like detailed and so immaculate, and just like that was like the thing. Dying was the thing in Egypt because the whole point was to get to the field of reeds so you could spend eternity in bliss with Osiris and all the other gods.
And a bunch of reeds, apparently.
In the field of reeds. It's beautiful. If you ever played Assassin's Creed Origins, not a sponsor, but if you ever played Assassin's Creed Origins, you get to go to the field of reeds at one point. It's beautiful.
I haven't played that, but I have played Elden Ring, where there's somewhere called the Land of Reeds.
Okay. I haven't played Elden Ring, so I can't comment on that. Not to be confused with Marvel's Council of Reeds, which is just a bunch of Reed Richards.
I was going to say not to be confused with Reed Richards.
But so Ammit the Devourer, it's a chimera consisting of the head of a crocodile, the chest and front legs of a lion, and the hindquarters and hind legs of a hippopotamus. Now, how do you think they came up with this? Do you think that this was inspired by something, or do you think that they were all just tripping balls and were like, this creature eats you in the afterlife if you're not a good person?
A lot of their mythology is based on like animals. Like it feels like a lot of their deities like represent an animal in one way or another. The one that comes to mind is Anubis, who has the like dog head.
Jackal.
Jackal head. Thank you. And Osiris has the like a bird head, right?
No, you're thinking of Horus, which is
I'm thinking of Horus. You're right. Thank you.
But then there's also I pronounce it Thoth, but I think the actual pronunciation is Thoth, who has the head of an ibis.
Yeah. Okay. So I think like it doesn't surprise me to see this kind of like animal amalgamation here, since a lot of their deities are represented as animal and usually also have human kind of amalgamations. Where they came up with the fact that like it's a chimera. I know that like chimeras are a thing in like folklore from like other regions. So whether this is the origin of that tale, or whether one of those other regions kind of came up with the concept of a chimera first, and they're like, maybe in our mythology, like if that existed with us, like I think it'd have this kind of head and this kind of body. And
Interesting.
Kind
of okay.
Like,
as far as I'm aware, I don't know of any other like religion or mythology that contains a creature that eats your soul if you don't pass the trial.
I don't know if
there could be one out there, but I just don't know about it personally.
Does Cerberus do that?
All I know is that Cerberus is a guardian.
I know he's a guard.
Don't know.
I know he's a guard, and he would probably like eat a motherfucker if they crossed him.
We need to put a swear counter up.
put a penny in the swear jar. But like I definitely think that that it either could be based on something, or other things could be based on it, because I know that there's a Greek mythology chimera, and that one is the I think head of a lion and also head of a goat, and the tail is like a serpent's head. But I don't really know which tail that's from. Or
I know what you're talking about. I think you might be getting confused with the Sphinx, the Greek Sphinx, not to be confused with the Egyptian Sphinx.
Does the Greek Sphinx have all those heads?
Yeah, well, the Greek Sphinx, I believe, has a human head and the body of a lion, which is kind of weird that there's two creatures across the two mythologies that have partial bodies of lions.
It's time for some on-the-spot definition, or on-the-spot research. Chimera, according to Greek mythology, is a monstrous fire-breathing hybrid creature composed of different animal parts.
Oh, you're right. That's where the word chimera freaking comes from.
Depicted as a lion with the head of a goat protruding from its back, with a tail that ends with a snake's head.
You're right. You were 100% right. I remember this. It's all coming back to me. I haven't read Percy Jackson in a very long time.
The Sphinx is an offspring of the chimera. Didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, okay.
Siblings. Cerberus. Did you look at that? Lernaean Hydra is a sibling also. Wow.
We're learning so much.
Anyway, we're not talking about Greek mythology
no, yeah, let's come back to Egypt.
Let's
come back to where it all began.
Bring it home.
All right. Well, what I think Ammit the Devourer is, how I think the Egyptians came up with it, and this is actually what inspired my idea for this podcast, because this is the first time I actually thought about what a mythological creature could have been in real life. And it was because I was just sitting on the couch. I was probably a little toked up, and I was just scrolling through Instagram, and I came across like this dinosaur post on Instagram, and it was talking about Spinosaurus, but it said Spinosaurus Egypt. Hold on, I wrote it down. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, aptly named because the fossils were found all over Egypt. So, do you know what a Spinosaurus is, my friend?
Yeah. Okay. I was a dinosaur kid. You know how
I was a dinosaur kid as well. And I remember in elementary school, I had a set of friends. They were twins, and they loved Spinosaurus. And that's the only reason why I know what Spinosaurus is. And I was actually surprised to find out that not a lot of people know what a Spinosaurus is.
No way. No, I'm a dinosaur kid, dog. You pick one of a couple of things when you're a little boy. You pick like trucks, like space, dinosaurs. Like you pick like one of those things, and dinosaurs was my special interest.
I was a dinosaurs in space operating construction equipment on the moon. That's the kind of kid I was.
I had the Tonka computer game, but other than that, I wasn't that into construction.
All right, but yeah, so the Spinosaurus is I believe there's two subspecies of Spinosaurus that we know of today, but we're only going to be talking about the Egypticus, and like I said, it's aptly named because these Spinosaurus fossils are found all over Egypt.
Is this one in the notes?
This is in the notes.
Because that guy's like huge, man.
We'll get there. I mean, Ammit the Devourer, who knows? It's a mythical creature. Who knows?
Well, in this little depiction of him, I see him standing next to a guy, and he only comes up to like the hips.
It's all about perspective, my friend.
I guess if like, you know, they wouldn't want to portray Ammit the Devourer as like smaller than Anubis.
I mean, yeah, but like gods are larger than life.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like they wouldn't want to be like, oh yeah, and Anubis is just like a guy. They're like, no. Yeah, Anubis the Devourer is big, but Anubis like
even bigger.
Ammit's a little guy next to him. Comes up to his hip if he stands up real straight.
Hell yeah.
That makes sense, I guess.
So the Spinosaurus is from the late Cretaceous, and they're not only found in Egypt, they're found all over northern Africa. But here's why I didn't even consider the size thing. I know that's a very good point. There's another hole in the theory that I'm gonna bring up later. But
sorry, I don't mean to start punching holes in it already.
But why do I think this creature is a candidate for Ammit? Well, we know that ancient Egypt was around for so long that they had their own archaeologists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what happened is they found a Spinosaurus fossil, and they didn't have the science and technology that we have today. So they probably saw this massive skeleton of this strange creature. And of course, they're going to, in their heads, they're going to craft a story about it that makes sense to them. And if you look at the skeleton of a Spinosaurus, which I'm going to put up right now, we can see an elongated snout, very much like that of a crocodile. We can see where its claws are. It has claws just like a lion. And if you look at its back legs, the legs that it actually walked on, we also know that it's an aquatic dinosaur. If you look at its back legs and then look at a hipposkeleton, which I'm going to put right here, if you look very closely at the hippo's hind legs, very similar to the Spinosaurus's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they like kind of stand on their toes. I see what you mean.
Stand on their toes. So as you can see, the elongated snout, the head of the crocodile, the claws in its hands, the claws of a lion. And I mean, obviously, they probably were aware of like some change, like, you know, probably this creature split into 3 different creatures. I don't know what was going through their mind. I wasn't around back then. But I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that like they found the fossil and then thus created the amalgamation that is Ammit the Devourer.
Yeah, like perhaps their you know, kind of rudimentary paleontology that they were conducting. They were like, I think these skeletons kind of fit together, and they like made a story of the skeleton that they kind of mashed together of stuff that they found in the ground around you know, their dig sites, if they had those. One of the things I noticed in these pictures that you got here is that the hippopotamus skeleton has some pretty tall spines on its back compared to the other 2 creatures. So even if they didn't find specifically like a Spinosaurus itself, they could have found like a proto hippo of some kind that maybe had a taller back, more like a boar. You know how like boars kind of have like a hunched, like pointed back a little bit. Maybe like they like earlier hippos had that kind of shape. I think it'd be cool to look into maybe like earlier evolved forms of hippos and see if we do see like a taller spine in those.
Right. I also think, because if you look at the hippo skeleton as well that I have here in the note document, it also like, obviously like you wouldn't think of a hippo having like an elongated snout. But if you look at the skeleton of it, that could honestly pass for like a crocodile if you didn't know what you were looking at.
Mm-hmm. Now, if they're believing that all this stuff happens like in the afterlife, then we don't really have to, I think, like think too hard about like what it looks like in real life, because we're assuming that like nobody, I guess, saw it in real life except for maybe like priests or spiritual folks that that kind of like meditated on the topic. Maybe they had a little more insight into what Ammit the Devourer looked like, but we wouldn't expect Joe Schmo from down the street in downtown Egypt to know like what he looks like, or
downtown Thebes.
Yeah.
They had Joe Met.
Joe Met.
Joe Met. The only thing that I think throws off the theory of the Spinosaurus is the spine, which we brought up. But perhaps so I'm thinking the idea of the lion came from the spine, because I wonder if it's a stretch, but I wonder if they thought that the spine could have been the lion's mane, if you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah. Lions' manes do go pretty far down their back. It's not just like around their face.
Right. But one thing that does confuse me, because if I could be wrong on this, but I also believe that Ammit is a goddess, technically. Ammit's a female.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only male lions that have the mane.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not the best answer for that.
But do you really see like early humans going like, oh, let's go analyze that thing, like getting close to?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have what we have today. They didn't have constant stimulation, so they probably saw something like that. We're like, this is so cool. Like,
that's true.
We gotta go check this out.
They were pretty brave back then. Like they would hunt down like pretty much anything. Like I know that like one of the
hippos in the Nile.
Yeah, like one of the best like hunting tactics that like humans use was we have the best endurance on the entire planet. So we would just run down animals for like miles and miles and miles, and they would just like collapse of exhaustion, and we'd be like, "Yo, we're fine." I'm like, we can keep going, dog. And we just like
persistence hunting. Let's
go. Yeah, exactly. Like
that's why they
whole
say
herd home. Like, what are they gonna do? They're out of energy. We win.
That's why they say if like your cat ever like gets out of the house, just walk after it. And eventually, because cats are we're persistence hunters, cats are ambush predators, so they only have that energy for that short burst of attack, and then everything else is rest.
Yeah.
So, like we just said, as humans, we just keep coming and coming and coming.
Another little fun fact for our listeners: if your cat does actually get out and you don't see where they went, put their litter box outside, because they can smell it from like miles and miles and miles away, and they'll be able to find their way home a lot easier if they can smell their litter box.
That's mythical.
There's a little cat finding fun fact for you. Penny's never run away, but if she does, that's what I'm going to try to do to get her back.
Penny scared her outside. We can put Penny outside and we can try it.
Penny would be livid about that. She does not want to go outside. She hates that shit. She loves her cozy little indoor life.
Oh my gosh. Oh, let's see. Where's the next point?
Do you think Spinosaurus could have like later versions of it that we just haven't found a skeleton for have evolved to have a shorter spine just because it like didn't really need it like evolution? Like I don't really know what it would need it for in the first place, but
so I know it's it kind of, my understanding is that it's similar to the dorsal fin on a shark, because they were aquatic dinosaurs, which is also why I think the Egyptians thought it was a amalgamation containing a crocodile and a hippopotamus, because those are both
because you think it was like kind of lurking around the river.
Like it helped them swim.
Yeah, it was a really huge kind of like river amphibian, maybe.
Something like that. Not an amphibian, right? But I know what you're saying. I also think like, because fossils are millions of years old, they could have found just a fossil that had the spine pieces broken off.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible too.
I mean, like these stories are based on like I'm not hating. Like they built the pyramid, so I'm not hating or nothing, but like these are some early humans here, and I'm not gonna like throw a ton of credit at their paleontology.
Right.
I'm sure they missed a bone or two, or maybe like put two things together.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, like they always say, I remember like because I eat this shit, I eat this crap up. I eat this stuff up, so I do know that like there's so many like of all the archaeology like documentaries I watch is all in every one there's always some point where they're like careful, 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 like it's so fragile. If you like touch it the wrong way, the whole thing shatters. So maybe that happened too. Maybe they were trying to lift the bones up and broke some of them. I mean, anything is possible. I mean, we could be just completely spouting nonsense right now, and this is not how Ammit the Devourer came to be at all. But I just don't know. I'm
gotta
like,
gotta go back
and connected to this. Can somebody please build a time machine? I'd love to go to ancient Egypt.
Just to watch them, or like we don't really have to talk to them and mess up the timeline or anything. Like,
I just want to observe.
Yeah,
and that's how we find out that the history of everything began, because you and I went back in time. They saw us, and we got worshipped.
You want to have a time travel episode sometime? I want to talk about how, like, if time travel existed, like, could it exist? Like, would it have to be like a different timeline that you're looking at, or like, do you create a new timeline when you travel back? I want to talk about that for a whole episode. So I would have to do that at some point. I know it's not really mythology, but
hey, that can be a Patreon episode. That can be not proto mythology, but pseudo mythology.
yeah, exactly.
Is that a word, pseudo mythology? If not, it is now.
Put it on our wiki.
All right. So, well, for this note, I said, we'll have to think on it some more. But why is Ammit a goddess and not just some animal that roams the land? So for that part, I definitely have a short answer and I have a long answer, but the long answer requires us to have talked about the gods, which is going to be, I've told you this before, but that's probably going to be I have a lot to say about the gods, like just in general.
Yeah.
And that could provide, or that will provide context for the long answer. But until then, let me talk about the short answer as to why Ammit is a goddess and not just some animal that's roaming around Egypt. But let's say that they only found one Spinosaurus fossil, and they're estimated to measure 13 to 18 meters in length and weigh up to 6 to 9 tons. That's a really big animal. And I know you were saying this earlier, like Spinosauruses are huge, but why does Ammit look so small? But like if they found an animal or the skeleton of a creature that's big as a Spinosaurus, I mean, to me, it makes sense that they would deify it.
Yeah, and especially that they would see that it's dead, and in their culture, they're like, oh, so it's in the afterlife now. Obviously, this thing was roaming around Earth at some point, and was maybe claimed by a god that was like, I could really use you for this heart weighing ceremony thing that we do. It's really tight. It's how we determine if people are worthy or not. You're gonna get to eat a bunch of people. It's gonna be awesome. You're gonna love it.
Could you imagine like Anubis?
One caveat: you gotta die, but you'll get to live forever. It's gonna be great.
Or the creature did die. Anubis found it in the Duat, which is the Egyptian spirit realm. Sorry, what was it? Okay, Anubis found the creature that would become Ammit in the Duat, and then was like, you know what, you can help me.
Yeah, maybe we're talking some sort of situation where it wasn't like a on Earth already thing, but like the creature died and then like was in the Egyptian afterlife, and they were like, whoa, check this guy out.
Yeah, bro, it's kind of funny. It paints the picture in my head that like they had all these like souls that weren't worthy of the afterlife, didn't qualify to go into the afterlife, and they were just taking up space. Mm-hmm. And so Anubis brought in Ammit to like just like pest control pretty much.
Yeah, we need to eat a bunch of these guys. We got a bunch of losers wandering around the Duat, and like we're trying to get this place like exclusive. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, this is like exclusive.
we can't just let anyone
talking
in.
about the Ritz. We're talking
But we got
about
nowhere else to
Four
send all
Seasons.
these souls that suck. So, right down your gullet they can go if you want. Eat them up, pal.
It's just like, I haven't had a meal in centuries. Horror.
A lot of the ancient mythology is a lot of stories about very few stories about like gods take place like in the afterlife. It's usually like stories about what they did when they came down for a visit. Sometimes, like I know a lot of Greek mythology is like that. Like most of the stories about the gods in Greek mythology is about something that they did when they came down from Mount Olympus. It's not like
Right.
the politics of what they're doing up there. No one cares about that. We care about how the things you did affected us. And I could definitely see that kind of influence here, where they're thinking about this creature that died. Like, how was it a real thing? And when they have this Spinosaurus fossil, or rather, it started with the Spinosaurus fossil. They're like, obviously, this is some sort of like deity that was wandering around Earth, and is in the afterlife now. We've never seen a thing this big and crazy, so it's some sort of demigod. I think it makes the most sense for this thing with huge teeth that this was some sort of soul eater of some kind. Because what else is in the afterlife besides like souls of the deceased?
Yeah. It's like strange. I wonder exactly like what the soul in the afterlife is, because the Egyptians had like there was 9 parts to the soul. I can't elaborate on all of those, but I wonder, like, does Ammit only eat one part of the soul?
Probably the whole thing, I would think, right? Because like, if the point of it is that they like weigh the heart, and then like the whole soul is eaten, like they don't have any stories about where it goes if you're eaten, right? Like you said explicitly in the notes here, they're gone forever.
Yeah, I know.
So
Because
like,
that's how I've learned about it. But
I guess
now that we're talking about it, it just has me thinking, like, because I think there is one part of the soul is the consciousness, and I wonder if that's the part that gets eaten and everything else gets recycled.
Oh yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Then like that person is gone, but the rest of this, like,
Yeah, because I know
soul energy,
the body is
conservation of energy. It's we're gonna kind of pass this on.
Yeah, the body is part of the soul.
Yeah.
Huh. Let's see. Crap, I'm still here. Them juices be flowing. Man, I just love looking back at my notes.
This is how my notes for D&D are. Like, I leave like little notes to myself where I say good luck, and I'm like, oh, I didn't write anything for what's in this town. I just wrote good luck with a little smiley face to myself, and then I have to figure it out like on the spot.
Right. So yeah, this is the last point I think I had about Ammit the Devourer is that she first started showing up in the Book of the Dead from the New Kingdom, which is estimated. I think it said like the 15th century BC to the 11th century, and because I know BC works backwards.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got these right, but I estimated that to be like 1600 BC to 1000 BC. So this is well after the pyramids were built. This is like the pyramids were already 1,000 years old by the time Ammit the Devourer started showing up.
Okay.
So by that point, we can extrapolate. Did I use that word correctly? Who knows? It's not what this podcast is about.
They're trying to like kind of fit this into their existing mythology once they discovered this.
So because you know how I was saying they had their own archaeologists. By this point, they were so established as a culture and as a civilization that they then could have found the Spinosaurus fossil.
For the first time ever, I think we're about to end an episode with like, well, there's our answer.
With a concrete action. For the first time ever on Mythic Reality.
Like this sounds pretty good to me. Not like airtight, obviously we're not there in the dirt digging this stuff up ourselves.
No, yeah, and plus another thing to think about, there was obviously way more than just Spinosauruses walking around.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason why I like jumped on Ammit being a Spinosaurus is because I saw literally the subspecies was called Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. That's why I jumped onto it. But really, I feel like it could be any sort of aquatic dinosaur. Spinosaurus is the only one I know of that has like the features that could metaphorically be resemble the features of the three creatures that Ammit is that they believed Ammit was comprised of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
I could see like either way, like them finding an incomplete fossil of a Spinosaurus, or maybe finding a like later evolution of a Spinosaurus where there's a shorter fin on it, but still has the kind of like alligator sort of mouth. Even a slightly smaller version of this dinosaur would still be an insane find for an early human,
for a culture just like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before I give it over to the myth heads, is there any more you want to say?
No, man, I'm feeling pretty good about this one.
Feeling pretty good. I feel pretty good about this one too, man.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little bit of ancient Egyptian trivia before we hand it over to the myth heads and see what they think.
Okay.
Did you know that Anubis is actually the Greek spelling of the god that is Anubis?
Oh, does it have like a crazy spelling?
No, I don't know if spelling's the right word, but like the Egyptians did not call Anubis Anubis.
Oh, did
we got the name Anubis from the Greeks talking about the god?
Oh,
but to the Egyptians,
was Anubis in Greek mythology?
What's up?
Was Anubis in Greek mythology?
No, Anubis wasn't in Greek mythology, but
that's just Anubis how they spelled it when they translated it.
Yeah, because the Greeks and the Egyptians were like this, like the new Twitter logo, like this. Can I get sued for? Are we gonna get sued for this? But yeah. So because we didn't know how to translate Egyptian hieroglyphics until we found the Rosetta Stone, we looked at like how the Greeks interacted with the Egyptians for like all our information. So that's how we got Anubis.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual what the Egyptians called Anubis was Anpu. ANPU, which means, I believe I was reading something about it later that said Anpu means decay, which is what Anubis was associated with, the decaying body, taking it to the afterlife.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's a little bit of ancient Egyptian trivia if that ever comes up. Anubis. And the funny thing is, the Snapchat AI, I don't know how much you messed with it. I messed with it for a little bit. But
yeah, it's fun. It's kind of like Chat GPT, but like a tiny bit dumber. I asked it a couple coding questions and it couldn't really.
Yeah, I had to teach it that Anubis wasn't actually Anubis, and that was the Greek version of it, and that his name was actually Anpu, and it was adamant that Anubis was Anubis.
I don't know how much it like commits stuff to memory, because if it could like remember stuff that people said, then like people could train it to be like really dumb.
It doesn't commit anything to memory, bro.
I would be in there like telling it some dumb shit and be like, no, bro, like I trust me. 2 + 2 = 5. You're wrong.
Like, I know all the calculations across the world go haywire.
Yeah, exactly. I would be in there messing with it, so I know it's not gonna like probably commit that kind of stuff to memory.
All right, that's good. Yeah, it actually did like apologize to me. It was like, you're right. After some further research, I have found that
Chat AIs are so polite. they're like, oh, you're right. I'm wrong. I'm so sorry.
I was just like, yeah, damn straight. AI. There's no way AI is going to take.
Please keep using me so I can keep collecting data.
I've stopped talking to it.
Yeah, I don't really talk to him. I ask for like recipes from ChatGPT sometimes, and that's it.
Right. But who would have thought that our Ammit the Devourer question would end with us making jokes about the Snapchat AI? But anyways, myth heads. Now I'm talking to you guys. What do you think about Ammit the Devourer? Do you think it was just a creature of myth? Do you think it was inspired by something like we seem to think? Do you think it was, if it was inspired by a real life creature, do you think it was a Spinosaurus? Or do you think, if there's any paleontology experts among you, do you think it was another dinosaur? let us know what you think in the comments. But until then, we'll see you for the next one. I got a couple ideas for the next one. Don't know what it's going to be yet. Mitch obviously doesn't know what it's going to be yet, but trust me, there's going to be a next one. It's going to be just as exciting.
Can we do the Todd very smelly guy or just kind of smelly guy episode?
We can do that. I'm right here. All right, my friends, myth heads, Mitch, another great episode. Until next time. Peace.
Later,
How do I stop recording? Oh.